Live and direct, we come and never pre-recorded, with information that will never be reported. Disregard the mainstream, media distorted. We come and listen and support it.
Hey, what's up, beautiful people? This is Zach Sweat with Eternal Strength. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio, and please be sure to check back each week as new episodes will be released.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in. Coy, I'm trying to do the intro here, buddy. Hey, what are we doing here? Thanks for tuning into Eternal Strength Pirate Radio. We have a guest today, a new guest, Coy Bowles. Welcome, sir.
Thank you for having me.
First time on the show, second time at the center. You were here for our grand opening, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, that was awesome. Man, the front of this place is like, you could do anything out there. So much room for activities.
Yep, there is. We have a big front yard.
Yeah, I showed up and I was like, whoa, that is a giant space. Because when you had the stage and the truck and all that stuff out there, it was, but yeah, you could like a mini festival out there or something.
We've done a slip and slide.
Still out there
did,
from the
soccer.
summer, just
you
sitting
hurt your
there.
Ankle.
Hurt my ankle.
Every time we play sports,
I busted my face.
himself.
I hurt my ankle. Threw my arm out. I can't do what I used to do. I can't keep up with the kids.
Old.
I played soccer the other day with some like 12, 13-year-olds.
How'd that go?
I was a little winded after a while, but I was kind of proud of myself, actually.
Okay.
We only did it for like 15 minutes, but I scored twice.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Soccer is no joke, man.
It was good.
That is the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, for endurance, man, for like real athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Anybody can stand there and wait for somebody to hit a baseball out in the outfield. They're cruising.
Yeah.
I like baseball. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I'm
me
just
too.
saying they're all cruising.
I like watching Bob Marley play soccer back in the day, and then Damian Marley has to put his dreadlocks in a book bag because they're so long when he plays soccer.
So
he'll get a book bag.
Take them off.
Yeah.
Damn. Put him in I got lost for a minute. I was like, what? Wait, hold on. He puts him in a little
No,
sack.
man, he'll and they'll lay him in there because they drag, and then he'll like zip it up like having then
Wow.
he's free. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Sports. We don't do sports. None of us really do sports.
We talked about that
talked
earlier.
about that.
Not
Yeah.
really sports guys.
We had a
Unless
nice
it's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
playing
Shout out
sports.
to the Falcons.
I like how when you said earlier Chris Hemsworth, and you said I thought you meant Chris Daughtry. I was like, that's Chris Daughtry's Chris Daughtry.
Yeah. Well,
Chris
you know,
Hemsworth's Chris
people can misuse other names, and Chris Daughtry could be going by Chris Hemsworth at one point. You never know.
We're gonna stop it here.
People confuse me with Jason Momoa all the time.
Yeah. Dude.
It's a lot.
Really?
No, are you kidding
I
me?
was like,
Come on.
No.
Aquaman. Oh
think
shit!
it's
No, it's not Aquaman. Yeah, it's your No, it's.
But man, this is awesome. Like,
Yes.
I'll let Coy kind of tell this story, but we connected, and Coy, I have tremendous amounts of respect for who you are as a man, husband, father, family man. The music that you do, both solo and with the ZBB, the Zamily. Got that? And then a tremendous amount of work and effort and energy in your children's books that you've written.
5.
I was going to say 6. Okay.
Yeah.
5 different children's books, and that's only growing in terms of what you're doing with the school system, with education, with teachers, with youth, and then a tremendous amount of volunteer work that you've done at children's hospitals and helping out there. So,
Yeah, somewhere along the way, I guess I went my whole life, just kind of watching watching MTV and looking at skateboard magazines and seeing these musicians and these bands and things, and you're like, God, I just want to do that, man. From the time I was like 10 or 11, and you kind of realize these guys, they have a voice, So when I was a kid, like I would watch, interviews of, it was a Seattle thing was happening then, so you would watch an interview of Kurt Cobain, Eddie Vedder, Chris Cornell, any of the guys in the bands, not just the lead singers, but and they would say something and, about how they felt about anything, and it would like profoundly affect you, and you realize as you get older that those guys had a voice, whatever, it might be. Then you start realizing, like, God, if I could just have a voice through music, not only through the music, but like kind of to make a difference in a certain way. And then when the Zac Brown band thing happened, and there was the like kind of rocket ship success, which kind of seems for most people was like overnight, but we had been grinding it out for years, waiting for that, moment. But when things started taking off, you kind of look around and you're like, dude, this is it. Like, I have a voice now, however big or small it might be, but it's still, there's enough people paying attention to where if I say something, 10 to 10,000 people are going to hear it. And then that turns into somewhat of a responsibility of what am I going to do with it, And I had long talks with my mother about it, a lot of soul searching, and it always just kept coming back to kids, just kept coming back time and time again to where you just can't go wrong. It's like, like politics and adults, and you can put a lot of time and energy into that world and it still get manipulated to where there's not an outcome that benefits anybody other than you just didn't it wasn't the right timing, you didn't play the system right, or you weren't, crooked enough or whatever else, And as of now, I don't really have the bandwidth for that, so the kids part of it was, it's so direct, you read them a story, you talk about creativity, you see them light up, they leave as a better human, and you feel better about it, and like it's a win-win. And I don't know if there's a selfish part in that, where it's just so immediate to where, like that's one thing that I'm really intrigued by. But, kind of back to the point, I really started taking the idea of having a voice more and more seriously. And it turned into this thing to where I have always lived in this way where I call it my antenna, but I try to keep my antenna kind of open to the universe, and follow the signs. And at moments, your antenna is wide open and picking up all the signals. And then sometimes for whatever reason, you think it's open, but it's really, kind of tucked inside and whatever else. But the older I've gotten, the more I've tried to, just be really aware that, a lot of it has to do with remaining vulnerable. A lot of it has to do with, not thinking everything and really being open to information, and also meeting people and hearing what they have to say and connecting the dots with just networking and stuff. But man, I've had the craziest things happen over the last 15 years for, keeping my radar open and picking up the signals and it guiding me to this path. And I feel like I've kind of slightly arrived at this place to where, it's definitely solidified to where, my life is about, helping kids, but also our education system in a whole. And all of that's been, kind of consistently more solidified as I go on by talking with experts about exactly what's going on in our country and in our education system with, mental health, with, even for youth, because my kind of wheelhouse is somehow or another focused on kind of early education per se. So like anywhere from 2 to 10 years old, but it's more like in the, 3 to 6, that kind of, pre-K, kindergarten range. And it's interesting because when I was a kid, the overall state of the country and in parenting and teachers and whatnot was like, keep them alive until you can get them into kindergarten, and then they'll start learning, and, you and I both have kids, and, and my
Sassy.
Yeah, we were just talking about the sassiness of it all. But, I have a 3-year-old who's about to be 4 in a week, and then a 5-year-old who just turned 5. And so I'm in that world, and it's almost indefinite what they're capable of learning at that age, and so, and this is kind of, we're getting into this pretty fast as far as this is, the podcast is concerned, but I hit this place to where we've got a lot coming down the pipe as a human species, you know. Climate change, technology is coming faster than, you know, I mean, you just think about the last 10 years, you know, it went from, you know, the internet and people having phones to where literally everybody has a phone that can record movies on it, you know, in HD and 4K and all this. So, and there's also this intrusiveness of privacy, you know, and so anyway, there's just a lot going on, you know. So overall, we've got a lot coming at us as a society. And, you know, the one thing that I think every kid deserves is a social emotional foundation. They deserve to be taught and have a foundation to where they know how they feel and how other people feel. And that's a pretty, there's a lot of information to be gained there, but I've never met anybody in my life who's successful who doesn't know how to read the room or doesn't know how they feel, you know, I mean, within reason, you know, I mean, it's like, so that being said, I think every kid deserves to be taught and deserves that foundation, you know, but if we, for some reason as a society, don't give them that foundation, then 20 years from now, when things are a lot more hectic, we're going to turn around and look at them and go, you know, what happened? This generation kind of like, they failed, you know, and then we're going to look at them and say, you know, well, why didn't you guys fix the climate crisis? Or why didn't you like kind of take control of technology before it got to where we lost so many jobs or it was so invasive or whatever else? But then they weren't going to, if we don't give it to them now, the kids who are like mine and your kids' age, they're going to be the ones solving those problems, you know? So, you know, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, they're going to be the ones who are in the position to make the calls to do all that. And if they don't have that foundation, then, you know, it's proven that they're not really capable of making, you know, the calls unless they learn it somewhere along the way, you know. But in order to be a high functioning member of society, you have to have these certain amount of skills. And the younger that you have them, the better off you are. And so it's kind of became like a real bigger picture for me over the last year, and just seeing that, if we're going to make a difference in the world, if we are going to kind of get out of this thing alive, if, you know, and it's, I mean, I go back and forth. There are times when I'm like, it is so dire, man. I mean, the truth be known, it's crazy right now, you know? And then there's other times where it's like, it's been crazy before, you know what I mean? And I kind of bounce back and forth you know, on like really, you know, how much do I stay up at night, you know, about this stuff, you know? But all of that being said, I definitely think that my life has kind of did this, you know, this path has gotten to where I'm at now, and where I'm at now is like obtaining critical mass. You know, it's like, I know what I'm here for. I know what I'm supposed to do. And now it's just really grinding and putting in and implementing and reaching as many people as possible. Not only kids, but teachers, you know, because I kind of reverse engineered it in order to have a kid who has a strong social emotional background and foundation and has all these skills with literacy and all that. It really boils down to having a happy and fulfilled teacher. And so, you know, you kind of got to reverse engineer this and start at the teacher and, you know, and get to them and go, look, you guys are like the ecosystem for success in our society. You know, you're undervalued, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that you don't have value. So I'll tell you over and over again, you know, how important you are, and also try to reinstill them, like, why did you get started doing this? Because it's a calling. If you ever hang out with early education teachers and you talk to them and you go, so how'd you get started? 99% of the time, it's going to be some story that you're just like, whoa, dude, I did not expect that. You know, it's going to be some kind of trials and tribulation and overcoming some kind of, you know, giant obstacle, only to get to where they're doing something that's so amazing for our society, but also it's going to be something to where it's a calling, because it's not like they have the benefit of knowing that they're secure in financial success or you know, they're doing it because this is who they are and what they have to do. So at the end of the day, the payoff is that this is their calling. You know, it's not that they get to pay their house off early or any of that. If anything, it's the exact opposite of that. So, I mean, as we all know, people who have these callings, I mean, you guys are definitely, in that group. So, you know, that it's like a certain style of living. It's a certain type of person. It's a certain like feel of cloth or of a person's being, you know, to where when you live with a calling, you know, it's just a different thing, man. It's not about, getting off on or work Monday through Friday and getting off and then cutting off and going on the weekend. It's like, you can't stop. Yeah. It's just the whole, it is who you are.
The mission is at the forefront of everything that you do in your life.
Yeah.
It drives you. It really drives you. It does. It is a different feeling waking up. You know what I mean? It's like, man, I got to get up and out of bed to keep this thing going. Like I got more work to do, man. Oh, I'm up. Let's go to fucking work.
Yeah.
So I feel you.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it is that it's all arriving at this place to where I can kind of clearly see the objective now, which is connect to the teachers, get them kind of, reinstated in why they originally started and what their true calling is, so they can feel purpose, you know, just as deeply as they did when they first overcame all of these obstacles to get to where they're at, and stay connected with that, share that story within their community of other teachers. So everybody's aware of how we struggled to get here, and then everybody's understood, and then everybody's got each other's back, which makes happier, more, kind of fulfilled teachers, which makes happier students. And then that turns around, and then we're going to have a stronger society moving forward, you know? So it's not rocket science, but yet it's really humanistic.
Yeah.
It's a lot of movement within inside, you know, humans, like in the human realm, you know?
Man, Coy, and as you talk, it makes me think about, it's a woven tapestry of interpersonal relationships and community. But what you're talking about specifically with your work with younger kids is, in my opinion, prevention intervention. So it's like, I can go in, you know, we could spend hours talking about the studies and the research done on early childhood development and the experiences for those young kids socially, emotionally, and psychologically that determine the outcome of their mental health and where they arrive through their adolescence, through their young adulthood. And what's unique about you, man, is like you have the calling when other people, it was funny as you were talking about like Kurt Cobain and all these people doing interviews, sometimes they would be the ones who was like, I'm not no fucking role model, man. Like, figure it out. And they flip the cigarette. And I'd always feel like, no, man, you are. Whether you like it or not, man, people are hanging on your every word. And the people who are hanging on the most are the kids that want to be cool and think that you rule the world. And so what your words say, they will take to heart and live their life by it. So like you as an influential, successful musician saying, nah, man, this is something that I take really seriously and my words are reaching the masses. What do I want to convey? What is my moral, my values, my character? What do I want to tell a kid when I was in their position to help them and guide them along the way? I think there's a lot of musicians that would just be like, I don't know, man, figure it out, rock and roll. I'm in a bathtub with 1,000 models from Thailand and silk sheets.
Well,
like,
that doesn't sound that bad either.
But for you to go, the calling is still embedded within me.
Yeah. I'm
here to do something, and it's constantly being tethered back to youth and young people and the limitless potentiality of what they hold and what they can do given the right set of ecosystem and support and environment. And there's nothing more important. That's where you and I agree, man. And it's like the alignment of like taking care of our youth culture. If we take care of them, they're going to take care of us. They are the next wave, the next movement. And
there's just so much more information too. You know what I mean? Like the studies are out, man. The truth is there. You know, it's like, trauma at a young age definitely has, it's clinically proven of what the outcome is. Like not having kids exposed to literacy and books and having them being able to read, at a young age is definitely, shows what it does for the future of their path. So it's not like we don't have the information, You know, so and the thing about it is one of my other things is educating the society as well, because it doesn't have to all be gloom and doom, and it doesn't have to be all based on a third grade reading level. Like if you're not reading, proficiently at a third grade reading level, the chances of incarceration are so high that it's just, outstanding. But I do think that there's the culture we live in, there's a little bit of a shock factor to where it's a balance of, kind of the truth of those studies, to where it's like, it is really scary. If for some reason, a child is not reading, proficiently at a third grade reading level, then their chances of incarceration, unemployment, and all this is just skyrocketed. So our society does need to know that, how important literacy is and how important it is to get them on track by this age. And it's not like they can't catch up, but man, at a certain point that, you're just behind the 8 ball, man, and so I don't think a lot of our society really knows that. And I don't think that, if you go around and start talking about social emotional foundations and social emotional education, I don't think really a lot of our, society really knows what that is. I mean, I think that a lot of people could kind of etch, and sketch the two together and kind of piece it together. But, a huge part of my thing is just kind of, turning on the lights of all of this stuff for everybody. And it's a cool time to do it too, because we just went through this, or we're still in, but we went through a major part of the pandemic where there were shutdowns. And when there were shutdowns, that meant that parents were now having to teach their kids on their own at home. And if teachers are, there's a reassessment of their value in our society, if ever, it's now, because, you ask any parent who is, working from home and trying to teach their kid at the same time, and they're just like, I would give anything to have a teacher in my life right now to help me with my kid, because, and so I think it's a good time to be like, okay, everybody write a little 2-paragraph, love letter to your teacher, and let them know, how much you appreciate them, instead of just like, here's my kid, I got to go do stuff, I'll pick them up later. My kid complains about so-and-so, and you just immediately go up to a teacher and, you're like, why is this happening? There's no community and connection. I don't want to say that there's no, because in a lot of school systems, there's a very deep connection, but overall there can be a lack of connection with, the parents and the teachers. And it's just this kind of like, drop the kids off, pick them up, shuffle them through. Why aren't they getting what they're supposed to be getting? Right. And it's so much more complicated than that. It's time for everybody to kind of like hit pause, reassess where we're all at in this whole thing together, and realize that it's for the benefit of the kids. You tried to do it on your own for 6 months to 18 months, and realize that it was a kick in the head. So like, okay, let's start valuing all of this stuff now. So it's kind of a cool time to have this message for me as well, because I think that what we were going through, people's, they're more open to hearing about it. And, as far as the trauma that's happened, to young kids with being away from other kids, having to wear masks in school systems, whether that's right or wrong or whatever, just, not being able to read lips and what that's going to do to, emotional understanding of being able to read, other people's faces where emotion comes from, so all of this stuff that I'm doing right now is on the forefront of, not only teachers and school districts, but like higher up, like, with the different organizations within our government, it's like they're starting to realize like, hey, we just kind of went through a thing. And if we need to put some time and energy into making sure that we implement these new strategies for, kind of dealing with this trauma that these kids went through. And a lot of that has to do with social emotional education, which is like, where I come in, and my whole thing is just to do really cool, creative stuff. Cool. So the books that I write, the music that I write that's for kids and all that stuff, the whole thing is supposed to be like jam up. Kids are supposed to be into it. It's supposed to be fun for the teacher, and it's supposed to, the whole idea of the concept that I created was the little red door. It's like a really elevated version of peekaboo. It's like, at a baby's age, you're like, what's behind my hand? You can't see it. And then it's like, oh, it could be me doing this face, or it can be doing this face, or it can be, so it's a surprise, it's the unknown. And then when you take that up a level, they're more sophisticated, they're more, inquisitive, they're creative, and imaginative mind is deeper and more developed at this point. So you kind of expand on that same concept to you're like, okay, here's a door. There could be anything behind it. What would it be to you? And you ask them that question and they're like, okay. And then it taps into what they're into, So I ask these kids all the time, if you could have a little red door that could go anywhere and do anything, what would it be? And my daughter the other day was like, it would be like a craft world where I could go in there, I could just paint on anything. And there would be paint everywhere. And I could just, when I was like, oh, dude, it made me think of that Robin Williams movie.
Shit. It's where his wife passed away and he's in her paintings.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a trippy
Something
movie.
to remember?
I was gonna say A Walk to Remember, but I know it's not.
Well, I have to think about, but man, they went there in CG in that movie. It was just, it was just amazing. But my other daughter, she can't swim right now, and we're practicing on swimming, and so somewhere in her mind, she's like wanting to become like her sister who can swim. And so I asked her last night what she wanted, and she was like, I want to be in a pool, where I can swim. And I was just like, how awesome is that? She's already envisioning, this place behind this like creative door to where she would be able to do something that she can't do now, which is so cool to me. So, when you get this chance to like visit kids, you're like, okay, what would be behind yours? And it's almost always different between each kid, even
It's beautiful.
in a situation where a lot of times you're in an environment to where, you're like, okay, what's your favorite thing to do when you go outside? And one kid would be like, play on the playground. And then every other kid hears that. And then like out of 10 kids, 9 kids will say play on the playground because they're just kind of like
Social
following
conformity.
suit a little bit. Whereas in this situation, it's really interesting when you ask kids what they think is behind the little red door. And when they say like, oh, that's really cool. That's really unique. That's different. I've never heard that one before. That's that's really special to you. And then you go to the next kid, it kind of gives them this freedom to not feel like they have to say the same thing or it's cool to say the same thing or whatever. And they'll just kind of like freely just go, I like animals and it'd be really cool if, and so that's one of the things that's so awesome about it is it really taps in. Yeah. So it's like this weird concept that I feel like I was given by like a higher power when creating this whole kind of, concept and IP and characters and all this. But it's so cool and how simple it is because it's literally just a portal to anywhere.
That's it.
And you can go forward, you can go backwards, you can go big, you can go small, you can do all this stuff. So for me, as far as like writing books on it or thinking in that headspace, it's just like endless.
It's beautiful.
How do we keep that going though? Is I think what you said earlier about them envisioning and using their imagination and like you said, tapping into that. How do we keep that going, man? Because I think as we grow older, we're like, stop daydreaming, like that's crazy. That idea that'll never happen. Like how do we keep that going, man?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, which this is definitely a good ball to pass around, but to me personally, I think it's by having, something like this integrated in a kid's life, whatever it might be. There's all different forms of it. Like music can come in at a kid's life. Music came in my life and when I was, around 11 years old and as far as playing it, and that was the red door to me. It was this constant, envisioning of different stuff. And before that it was skateboarding, so from the time I was young, I've always kind of jumped from one kind of creative outlet to another creative outlet. So I think it's like really tapping in, and you guys know this better than probably anybody that I've ever met is, really sitting down and having, kind of deep discussions with, a kid. And I say kid loosely, but, under 18 we'll assume, and finding out what they're into. And if it's video games, then cool. Where does that lead you creatively though? Instead of just like mindlessly cutting off and whatnot, how are you inspired by this stuff? Where are you growing? where are you like spinning wheels of creativity about, you know? So to me, it's just like finding out what's hip to them and then supporting them in that. Cause I mean, I know when I was younger, skateboarding when I was a kid was like what losers did, you know, it was like, and when I would skate in my hometown, you know, we were kind of like the little misfits running around town, like, you know, messing stuff up kind of. And now, you know, Nigel Houston's probably making what, $12 million a year riding a skateboard, if not more, you know? Yeah. You know, so it's like, you know, you can make serious loot and be a major influence on society riding a skateboard, you know?
Keeping that creative process going, but not having like, feeling like we're like a novelty space, like making that the norm, like continuing the creative process as you go along and never, you know, always encouraging that. But
it was interesting, man, as you were, well, first, there's a really cool skate shop in Noonan that Ty, our creative director, is good friends with the owner. And he runs a nonprofit called Skate and Serve, and it's called Vinyl Light. It's a record shop / skate shop. And they've built this awesome community. And that's amazing. But, man, Coy, I go back to what you're saying. And this could be maybe not a good analogy, but like the little red door is the door of perception, is literally the internal lens of perception to the world of imagination. Oh, totally. And if you think about everything that has been created by a human, by culture, by society, it all comes from a seed, from a thought, and then a manifestation into the physical realm of that. And so giving kids at this young age access to recognize you have that imagination and you can build and actually create your life and how strong your perception is. Because I think a lot about mental health being, when it closes in on itself, perception has begun to shut down and get really, really small. So depression, anxiety, all these things are the closing down of perception and not being able to widen it. But if you're going throughout your life and from the earliest age you've been taught, you can play, there's childlike wonder, you can use your imagination and how powerful of a tool that is, and somebody else is curious to it. So that's where I think Little Red Door is unique, because you're giving, it's like a toolkit. So instead of, hey, Dr. Seuss, come into the world of imagination that I've created, it's you have the world of imagination within you. For sure. And I want you to use this as a portal to start to envision and create your world, because that is going to be your life. Your life is going to be based on your perception and what you think.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, because you've always had this term of like sacred space. I know, you know, in the past you've mentioned, you know, a lot about, you know, like this place that we're in right now, you know, I would consider something that's like this sacred space that you've built to when people come in, you know, that like everybody has good intentions and we're all going to try to, you know, figure out where we're at and how to go forward. So it's a sacred space. Like, tell me anything, you know, whatever else, like, you know, you allow for, you know, things to be understood, you know, and there be room for discussion and all this, you know. And I've always hung on to this idea of sacred space, because when I was a kid, I had this little attic space off of my room, and it was like kind of triangular shaped. So the back wall was, you know, probably 8 foot tall, and then it went down to like a 4 foot wall. So it was like mandatory that you bumped your head on this wall like 10,000 times until like you just got to where you were like equated to the space. You know, when you would walk in, you know, you would instantly know that like, okay, I'm this far in the room, I have to start ducking my head.
The wall trained you.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, for
like
sure.
Coming in this
but I had a hammock in there, and I had like all my skateboard stuff, and it was like my little like sacred space. I can go in there and I could listen to music. If I was bummed out, I could, you know, cry, or I could be mad, or I could do whatever. But it was just like this little, it was like a man cave, but way more emotional than that. You know, it wasn't just like, it didn't have a TV in it. It was just a CD player, magazines, you know, and all this. And so I've always kind of had this spot in my life, and and then when I moved out and I moved into another place, it turned into like a rehearsal room. Like I've always had this like room with gear set up in it or something that was always like where I would go and kind of, you know, do this creative activity or sit and think or whatever. And I haven't really realized it until talking just now, but, you know, a sacred space in my life has always been like subconscious and completely necessary.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I want the behind the little red door to be is like this sacred space, you know? So when like you get in there and you decide what you want it to be behind the little red door, it's like, no matter what it is, it's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, if you're talking about, you know, mixing, you know, animals at a young age with like, you know, like a dolphin horse or, you know, just whatever you're talking about.
You that mean visual was fucking weird.
You know what I mean? Like, whatever. If you like horses and you like water, then it's cool, man. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, yeah, whatever you want to do behind the door is, you know, combining things and mixing it up and all that stuff. It's like that, to me, it's really important for that behind the door is like is a sacred spot, you know? And that's cool because I learned that from you as far as like naming it that. I think I've always like subconsciously had it in my life, but I never really labeled it in my life as, because sacred space for some reason just has such like a ring to it.
Yeah.
As soon as you say it, you know, like it's like safety.
Yeah, it resonates.
It's like, it's like freedom, you know, creative, you know, exploration. There's all this stuff to it. And I've always really enjoyed that. And when I work with people one-on-one now, like if I'm in the studio writing with them, or if I'm, you know, kind of mentoring someone, or if I'm, you know, I teach at a university, you know, as soon as I go in and kind of start doing my thing, I'm always like, look, guys, like me right now, this whole thing, this is a sacred space, you know, like
awesome.
We're going to talk shop. We're going to get down to it. Everybody telling me what, you know, within reason, you know, nobody needs to just start flailing and cussing and slamming stuff around or anything like that.
He says it's a sacred space, right?
And do whatever. It's like that. I think you should leave when he's doing the tour of the haunted house. He's like, hey, it's adult time now. You know, we can drink. So you guys can say whatever you want. And he just starts to like be super filthy during the whole tour. Anyways.
Yeah.
But man, it's funny, Coy, because that came from, I think there was a lady named Leslie back years ago at Vive, the company that I worked with, and you know, most of these clinicians and psychologists were making notes. You had to make like case notes and session notes on each session. And for the first time I read one of hers, and she said, did the whole note about like what happened in the session, and then ended it with continued to hold sacred space.
Yeah.
And so all of my notes, I started to add that, but it really impacted the way I thought about the work and clients coming in, and how it was like, that's my role. My role is to make sure that you have all these things, that you have safety, that you have autonomy, independence, creativity, because we all know, man, if anything's off socially or emotionally, you won't feel free to express that, and you'll shut down. And it's the freedom of expression that actually gives us the connection we need with other human beings. It's when we're not articulating what's going on in our head and our heart that you start to feel alone and isolated. But man, if you can start to express that in an arena where somebody can hear you and see you and say, I don't have judgment around it, and I still love you and I care for you. It's like, that's the seeds of healing and where it can start. And I think I do, man. I think the little red door is a sacred space, and maybe it was unintentional or unconscious, or it was divine source working through you, but it's definitely setting up all the pillars and foundations for, you have this and you can go there at any point. Now imagine kids reading. It's like, man, I can remember the books I read with my dad. One of them was called Spud. Yeah. About a little potato that went like skiing with all of his other friends. And one of them was called Jillian Jiggs and Her Wonderful Pigs. And she had all these, but those visuals, those memories, where we were, what was going on, the house I lived in, it is a portal back to where you were and what was going on. And I feel grateful because I got some of your books and you signed them. and I was reading them with my daughters. And I'm like, I know that dude, man. I like hanging out with him. I play guitar with him and stuff.
Yeah.
And they like don't give a shit about that. They're like,
Yeah.
it's great. Like, you read the book again.
Yeah.
But they're beautiful, and just the memories that it embeds and opening up to creativity. And that's what I think it is letting kids see their creativity, their uniqueness, and then genuinely being intrigued by it.
Yeah.
I want to know about your inner world and your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions, and not in a way to judge it, but in a way to like, I'm genuinely intrigued by it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love, before it's all said and done, and this might be, well after I've come and gone, and like, my daughters or somebody else who sees the vision of this whole thing take place, or it might happen within my life. But I would love for the red door, just imagine like eyeballs and like a smile on a red door, that leads into somewhere. And whenever you see that face, it's not necessarily as much the red door as it is the red door with the face on it. And that wherever that is, and when you go through it, it's a sacred space.
Cool.
So if you're in like a kid, if you're in a library and there's the kids section and there's a little door that would, with a face on it, and everything, when you go through that place, then it means that like, this is your spot, man. This is your books. This is for you, and if you were like a children's hospital or something like that, or, a public library, or just, any kind of spot to where kids have the possibility of learning or growing or being vulnerable, for needing care, with, like in a hospital situation or whatever, I would love for it to be this whole concept of when you go through this door, you're going into safe hands, you're going into a creative place, you're going into, growth or understanding or whatever, so it's not just so much as the possibility of it being, floating freely in your mind and in books as it could be, synonymous with like physical spaces as well. Yeah. Like the entrance to this place. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
Andrew,
paint the door red now, damn it. Put eyes on it now.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when you see it, you just know that like you're taken care of. I mean, and that's there's a lot to be said for that, man. I mean, I know, the door to my parents' house, it's like, I can just close my eyes right now and feel what the doorknob feels like. Yeah. It feels like what it feels like to turn it, the shape of the doorknob. It's like oval, and what it feels like to turn it and to walk in, you just know that in that space it's sacred and like you're good, man. Yeah. Yeah. But I have a great relationship with my parents, and I'm sure some people turn the doorknob to their parents and they're just like,
I get goosebumps and I turn around.
But for everybody, there's hopefully a sacred space.
Yeah.
Some door, somewhere, whether that was a friend, a family member, a caregiver, a mentor, and
maybe you don't have to be a physical space,
Yeah.
Just go within.
Well, that's the other thing too, man, is as you described your bunker where you bumped your head a bunch.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
I was in the hammock and I was reading magazines with you, and I could see it visually. And so that's the other thing too, is like it's always within us, man. And that's what I forget sometimes, is like the power of visualization. Wherever you're at during the day, closing your eyes and you can go within, you can transport yourself there. And by going to that place internally, your entire nervous system goes to that space.
Sure.
And so you feel that relaxation and that safety. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting, man. Just the idea of, everybody kind of having that sacred space within their life. I mean, some people it's the gym, some people it's like a yoga studio.
This guy,
some people,
it's the gym.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah. What's going on?
Hey, brother.
Bitching 275 right now as we speak.
You headed
in
to
my mind.
You gonna drink that protein shake or what? It is my sacred space. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? It was for me for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a spot where I went off to college, and I was super active in the community in my hometown and social. And I was like, I just want to leave, and I want to go to where I can start over and be new. I'm going to get tattoos. I'm going to be my real self, because I could never do that in my hometown without being judged, and I had to kind of fit inside, and I want to break the mold, and I want to start over. So I went to another small town that was just like the one I grew up in, except for I had a college, you know? So I literally moved an hour away, exactly where I lived, and I didn't know anybody. And it was the first time in my life to where I was, you know, socially awkward. I mean, I'd always been just hip with everybody, man. I had 15 different groups that I hung out with in high school. I knew everybody. And I went to this place and, you know, I started playing with musicians and stuff like that. And they were kind of like doing drugs and stuff. And I wasn't really into doing drugs. And so they would be like, do you want to, you know, I was like, I just want to come and jam, you know, like if you guys do that before or after or whatever, I don't care. You know, I just want to come and play. And then they started kind of getting sketched out. You know, they were like, you know, why aren't you doing the drugs with us, man? And you're like, well, I don't care. Yeah. You know, I just want to play music. And then, so everywhere I was
sure
at,
those drugs are hurting you guys. I mean, it's on y'all, but let me lay down this guitar riff and I'm going to head on out.
Yeah, but it was the first time to where the gym was it, man. I mean, dude, from the time I was 19, I wrestled in high school, so I was really trying to get a scholarship in college to wrestle. That was like when I was 18, 19, that was what I wanted to do. You know, it was like get better at wrestling. Just with my size and my mentality and my, you know, kind of makeup. I only wrestled 1 year in high school, but it was something I was really good at, like kind of fast, you know. And I'd never played a sport that I excelled at, like, you know, and a lot of it had to do with like my size, you know, short and stocky. I mean, that's like a wrestler's build. So I was, you know, kind of built for it more or less, you know, but I had a really killer coach, man. And he taught me some of the basics, dude. And I could rip, you know. It was like the first time I get in there with people who were way bigger than me and stronger than me, and I knew the basics, and I could rely on that foundation of basics. So when I went off to school, I was like still running 6 miles a day, still in the gym all the time. And the more that I didn't connect with, you know, the college and different people around me and musicians and all this stuff, the more I just was like gym. Man, and at one point, I think I was spending, you know, 4 to 6 hours in the gym a day, you know, for probably 3 years, you know. And, I mean, I was like more shredded than a julienne salad, dude.
More shredded than
Oh, boy.
You real kind of. Give me the damn map.
Yeah. You like Rocky 3.
But and to your point, man, I think about it, and as you describe everything, it's like, the importance should be, and this is going to sound cheesy, man, but like there should always be an evolving sacred space for where you are developmentally.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Different
that's not
time.
cheesy.
Well, I was going to make a really cheesy thing and be
Do
like,
it.
there should
Let's
always
do it.
be a little red door, no matter what age.
Yeah.
You are.
And then we fade out.
Yeah. To just west. Like,
but it's to your point earlier where you kept saying like, well, how do you do that? How do you do that? And
You gotta make that a consistent.
You gotta go within. You gotta
gotta
find
be
out.
consistent with it. Sorry, man.
Yeah,
but
no.
I mean,
but it's the evolution, though, right? All right. So let me take your life for example. What was your little red door from, you know, birth to now? Just like jump through the hoops on what it was.
Honestly, man, when I connect the dots going backwards, all the things I've ever been into has been me on stage. So in middle school, it was drama.
Yeah.
In high school, it was music. After high school, it was music, playing in a band. And then I went to bodybuilding. I did that for years. And then now it's speaking on stage.
Right on, dude.
And it's always like giving back, like putting my passion and my energy out to other people.
Sure.
In some type of platform. So that's what I've always been into. That's always been my sacred space.
Would the little red door in your world be like preparing for that though, or would it actually be being on stage?
Yeah, I think it's in the preparation of that, because over the years I've learned to fall in love with the process of, and it's never getting on stage, it's getting prepared to be on stage.
Sure, yeah, the rehearsals, the gym, you know, to me that's what it's always been. Like when I hit music, it was the idea that I could close my eyes and practice guitar for what felt like 30 minutes, and then would be like 4 hours. You know, my mom would be like, you have to come down and eat food. And I was like, I just started, you know. Yeah. And even when I was in college, I mean, I would sit down, I'd get home from school, I'd close my door, I'd start running scales and, you know, practicing. And then I would look up and I'd be like, dude, I can't believe it keeps happening. I mean, ever since I've been 11 years old, time just completely doesn't even exist anymore.
Flow state, baby.
Yeah, it's really, but you know, that's the whole thing, is the prep for the release. And there's nothing cooler than the prep for the release and there being the release, because some people, you know, have, like my wife, she would never get on stage. You know what I mean? Her thing is never about like sharing her sacred space with somebody. It's all within her. And that's been something that's been very unique for me to understand, is that like I'm all about being on the stage. I mean, to me, it's like, okay, baby, let's prep. And then it's like lights, camera, action, jump split. You know what I mean? Like, let's do this.
Which you do a phenomenal jump split. By the way,
I can do it. Most people, like, still to this day, I'm like, I can do like a herky, I guess is what it's called, where you jump up and like touch both of your feet out. Okay, and there's like, they're like, there's no way your fat ass can do that. And I'm like,
watch this.
$20. Ham sandwich. Yeah. Watch this. And they're like, after I do it, they're like, damn, for a little fat guy, you can put it.
What did you call it? A herky?
I think that's what it's called. I might be wrong.
King of the herkies.
It's just basically jump out and toe touch, like, you know, spread eagle kind of thing. But it's, you know, it's important for me to realize in my relationship with my wife that her sacred space doesn't have anything to do with like lights being on her. There's, you know, she's always kind of like, her sacred space is like behind the scenes and being supportive of somebody else. So she has this ability to have like gathered as much knowledge as I have in music, as much knowledge as you guys have in like connecting with people, you know, through psychology and all of this. And hers has been connecting with people through like self-esteem. So she'll have somebody come in and she does hair and makeup. And so somebody will come in, they'll want to, you know, they'll express to her in the sacred space how that they feel this way and this way about their self-perception. She'll have like, you know, an intimate conversation with them without judgment and with support about how, you know, she can do this and this and this to, you know, kind of guide them in this direction. What do they think about that? They kind of agree on a process. Some of that is them basically saying, you know, you know more than I do, I'll trust you. And then she does this kind of like this, you know, interaction with them to where she either cuts their hair or dyes their hair or adds extensions or does this thing. And then they'll walk out, man. And you can literally see people walk out and they're just like changed within this small, you know, anywhere from an hour to, you know, 6 hour experience, according to what the change is going through. And, you know, and it's amazing, man. And people will be like, your wife is just like, wow, man, you know, and it's been really cool to see how profound of effect you can have on something without it being like lights and camera and the energy being directly like this. It's more like you implant your goodness and your skills within them, and then you let them leave and go do their thing, so they become the lights and the
like
and
the hype man, like the person on the track that's adding libs. Yeah, for sure.
But
awesome,
and the man, I wonder if it's somebody else seeing your beauty and helping you bring it to light in a way that you feel empowered now, and how important that is.
Oh, for sure, dude. And she's so unassuming and so dedicated to her craft and has learned so much. And she also is really fast. So, you know, it's one of those things that's probably what most people say the most often, is that I've never had anybody do that fast.
Cool.
So it's not one of those kind of things to where the transition to where you want to be is something that ends up taking like, you know, an entire day away from your family or whatever. It's like you can kind of tuck in, have an experience with her, and come out feeling better. And you're all like, I still got time to like run an errand or two or something like that. And it wasn't like it was not the quality that you were searching for too. It's been a really awesome experience, like seeing a different side of like connecting with people and making them feel good, because it's so selfless. And she's so selfish, and I am an only child, so like by default I have a certain amount of like, you know, mechanisms built into me that it's about me, man. You know, I know no other way. And so being around her and and she's like the most non-competitive person I've ever met in my life. Like if we were to play ping pong, I'd be like, okay, well, let's play a game, and she was like, really? I'm like, what are we just gonna pat the ball back and forth?
We're keeping score
for
dude.
fun.
Yeah.
Like why would we do that?
Yeah. But man, you're as you keep talking, I keep thinking about the critical importance of recognizing individual human souls and what their thing may be.
Oh, for sure.
It's so different, but it all comes back to self-knowledge, self-awareness, self-insight, self-knowledge, and it shouldn't be looking outward as to what I need to do. It should be learning as much as you can about yourself and asking yourself those questions so you can go, okay, this is my journey. This is what my sacred space should look like. This is what my focus should be. This is what feeds my heart and my soul and my life and where I need to pour my energy. And that's okay if it's drastically different for different people.
It should be.
And
right. Yeah. I
And
mean,
It has to be.
Well, and like what you said, you start looking outward, like, oh, I'm going to go do that. And then you can live a whole lifetime of just doing something that it's not even you or what you're really called to do. You were just looking and following suit with what other people were doing instead of asking those questions like, what am I into? Even if it is weird or doesn't make sense to other people, it's your vision, it's yours.
Well, we're in a pretty cool part of society right now where a lot of walls have come down. I mean, there's still a lot of change that needs to happen across. I mean, and there forever will always be change that needs to happen. But, I mean, perfect example is like, look at tattoos when we were young. It was like, it was not cool. You could go backwards in life by, expressing yourself like that. And now it's one of those kind of things that like CEOs and some of the most powerful people in the world, are inked up and, and as long as you get the job done, nobody cares, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And
there was this one comedian, man, and he came on and he was talking about, he's got a lot of tattoos, and he was like, I met this grandma the other day, and she was like, back in my day, those tattoos meant that you were in a gang or that you murdered someone. And he was like, ma'am, are you mad that I haven't murdered anybody and that I have these? It was this awesome guy. He's like, good. I'm trying to understand, are you upset with me that I'm not more violent?
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah, on
But
TikTok
you're right.
the other day.
It's perception, persona, identity, and acceptance, and letting people go on their radical pilgrimage of growth and accepting them for where they're at. And that's that Ram Dass
Dude,
thing.
you just like busted out so eloquently that you have had to have said that before.
That's like our whole tagline, the radical pilgrimage of growth.
Well,
Trademark team.
but it comes back to like, and Coy, I mean this in the most honest way. It comes back to verbiage and literacy and exposure to that. I didn't say those words, but I heard Ram Dass say that.
Yeah.
I heard Alan Watts say that, and I heard people use this toolkit that then described. So it's like Ram Dass talks about going into the forest and seeing the trees. And he's like, every time I go hiking, I see all these different trees, and they grow different ways and different sizes, and I have pure acceptance of all of them. And I can understand why they grew how they did to reach towards the sun and their curvature, and there's no judgment. And then I come back into society and I get around people, and here's all the judging mind. You're to this, you're to that. Tattoos, you need to change this, you need to look different. And he's like, my forever practice will be turning people into trees.
Yeah.
And try, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Let them grow, man. Let them grow how they need
and
to.
see, maybe they grew that way because of this or that and went through, but it's an acceptance thing rather than a judgment thing.
Sure.
And I think you're right.
Oh, I mean, I'm insanely grateful for the idea that I've always been accepted within my little trio of my mother and father and I. Man, when I wanted to ride skateboards, it was like, here's a skateboard. I mean, we didn't have money or anything like that, but it was always the support. It was always, here's a skateboard, for Christmas or whatever else. I'll take you into town, ride. Here's the rules. You can't get in cars with other people. Yeah. You can't do this. You can't do that. If I find out that that you're breaking these parameters, then I'll take the skateboard away from you, kind of thing. So there was always this real clear communication of like, here's how we support you. Here's how if you take advantage of us in a certain way, what we'll take away from you. Mm-hmm. So like when I was young, I was always allowed to dress however I wanted to. I could have my hair as long as I wanted to. I could wear any clothes that I wanted to. But if I ever got in trouble or made bad grades, then they could pick what I wore.
Okay.
You know, and I was just like, dude, you know, and I don't think that they would have like tormented me by picking out something that I wouldn't have wanted. Yeah. They would, I mean, they would have never did that, but they would have known what like I liked, and they would have decided that goes in this bin that you get to have, or they would have made me cut my hair, you know?
Yeah.
And I always was like, you know, there was this real cool understanding of like, I don't really want to get in trouble. You know, that's not part of like kind of the line that I'm trying to cross. But the fact that it was laid out so clearly with everything is like, I knew that like the more that I followed kind of in their parameters, and they gave me a pretty wide parameter. The more I followed in that, the more freedom that I got, and the more understanding that we all had, and the more trust that was built, and the more they were going to support sacred spaces, and the more they were going to, you know, kind of, you know, allow for growth and these different things. I mean, I remember asking my parents when I was 15 years old, my buddy said, ask your parents if you can go to Nirvana, they're coming to town. And at 15 years old, I was like, dude, I'm 15. You know, it's like Dewey Cox, you know, or something aside. You know, it's like, I'm 15, you know? And I remember going up to my mom, and I was just like, all right, well, whatever, we'll see. And I was like, Blake wants to know if I can go to Nirvana with him because they're coming into town at the Omni. And she was like, let me talk to your dad. And I was like, that wasn't like an immediate no. And so my dad's like, they knew who Nirvana was, you know, and they knew I was really into him. And so, you know, they were like, who's driving? You know, I need to talk to Blake's mom, you know, and they just did the connection. They probably talked to Blake for 5 minutes and was like, you know, if you're driving, you know, we need you guys to call us when you get there. And then, you know, there was no cell phones and stuff like that, but go to a payphone and be like, hey, we're here. You know, hey, we're leaving kind of thing or whatever else. And they're like, yeah, as long as you do these couple of things, we're cool. And I was like, you got to be kidding me, dude. And I remember like us driving. I have a picture of us driving up to Atlanta and we're sitting in the back and our hair's like Buzzo from, you know,
the clown?
Melvin's.
Oh.
You know, like, like
he said Bozo.
King Buzzo, like we had our hair like, you know, just like super, like we just did like this or whatever. And we were like joking around in the back, but me and him were sitting in the back seat like this. And we're like kids, dude, you know, thrift store clothes. And then we went to see Nirvana.
Come on.
You know, and it was nuts. I mean, it was like still one of the most bananas things
But as you talk about your parents, man, it's like, and that's, I think, a tremendous amount. It's what I try to be as a parent. It's what you're trying to emulate as a parent. It's what all the parenting work that we do here is not to tell somebody how to parent, but to say, if you can be these, it's almost like a bowling alley. If you can be these bumpers in terms of safety, in terms of boundaries, requirements, certain things that won't be tolerated, rules, regulations, but it's almost like expanding it. And so as your kid's growing, giving them more and more freedom. And
next thing you know, they're like F1 car races instead of like bumper lanes. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, and instead of like throwing a ball down a lane, it's like this. It's all of a sudden you're going 200 miles an hour with rails.
Yeah.
You know?
But our goal isn't to hinder you or take away your passions from you. It's to give you guidance and trajectory, but to support you and stand behind you in whatever pursuit is that spark, that flame of like interest. And the real parents see that, man. They're like, we got to keep that blazing bright. Because when that flame goes out, man, that's when everybody's heart and soul just feels, you're kind of like, I don't know what it is anymore. I don't know what my purpose is.
That's what I'm saying. Keep that flame alive, man.
You know what's really interesting, though, is that like just through my own journey and my journey with my friends and, you know, seeing them go through their different, you know, growths in life and coping with different things that have happened via trauma or, you know, either coping in good ways or bad ways. And then, you know, just navigating everything that comes at you in life. I've been really lucky in the sense that I had a large group of friends that I've been connected with my whole life. And I've seen some of them veer off pretty hard. That friend group is like narrowed as I've gotten older, and there's definitely people that I've, had to move to different layers of the onion, as far as like I have my hardcore group in the middle, and then I have like friends that I've been friends with for a long time, but I don't necessarily connect with like who I am now, but I still connect with them of like who I've always been, and then there's people that just, we've been friends, but we don't really understand each other. And then I have people that are like acquaintances, so as I've had to like grow, I've realized there's all of these different layers to my life, and not only like it's like kind of a trust bubble, and how many people I allow to get close to the core nucleus of who I am, and and all that. And I've been really lucky to have so many beautiful people in my life. But I start thinking about other people who don't necessarily have like the communication with their parents, and so they didn't have that understanding. They didn't necessarily have guidelines. They might have had more trauma. They might have had more abuse. They might have had all of these different things, or they might have had everything in the world set out for them, more money than you can think of, but there was never right connection, or whatever the situation might be. But, it's like, it all kind of comes down to these same principles. It's like all having purpose, and all having this kind of sacred space, whether it's internally or externally, and then having some kind of like societal connection, some kind of, and it can be small. It can be you and 3 dudes, you can be you and, and when I mean dudes, I don't mean necessarily like male or female, but, 3, amigos and amigas, but like friends. And it's like, that's the thing that I've kind of came to as I've grown, is realizing that we as humans need like a certain amount of things. And I learned a lot of this through hanging with you too, but these certain, aspects that you got to kind of balance a little bit, and one of my mentors, he talks about it like you're cooking. He's like, you got the front, thing that's like, that's where your main thing is. And then you like swap out the dish and all this. And so, like you always have like your mental space, and like your way of coping, and you always kind of keep that in check. And if you put it on the back and don't, and let the rice, the grits get clumpy and all that stuff, then you got to like bring it back in, add water and start stirring and kind of like get to it. Cause then you start realizing you're coping in bad ways and you're not doing what you need to do. But man, it's really complex just to be human and alive right now. And specifically with the pandemic going on, it, added more hoops to jump through connecting with people and being more isolated and things like that, which is, but I've been really, kind of going back to the point, I've been really lucky to somehow or another not take too many hits along the way, like being just kind of with my antenna out enough, having the social emotional foundation and communication skills that I developed from my parents, and to know like who I am and where I'm going and what I want to do. And, I feel really blessed overall that, I've kind of arrived at where I'm at, just even like when you guys called the other day and was like, do you want to come and talk? I was like, oh yeah, dude, this is going to be awesome, So, but it's really interesting, man, to see, people that I've known who've like fallen into drug addiction or, some kind of substance abuse, and then like pull it back together and then come back, man. Like one of my best friends, dude, he just kind of fell off and it got bad, man. And then he's just like pulled himself up by the bootstraps, dude. And
awesome to see.
Right now he's like he's always been one of my favorite people. But right now, from being a dude that I would call and I would have an hour-long conversation, I would hang up the phone. I was like, did we talk about anything at all? Not that it even matters, but did we even talk about anything? We talked for an hour and a half, and I don't know if we ever even talked about anything. That was like my existence with him for like 5 years. So now when I get off the phone with him, I'm like, dude, I should have wrote all of that down. And it's like, and he's not necessarily, trying to be the next Tony Robbins and make millions of dollars and affect so many people. He's doing his thing in his world and his life and affecting the people around him. But, it's so amazing, man, just to, that the power of the human spirit and the fact that it is possible to hit bottom and come up. And you know, I know in the pandemic there was a spot to where I got about as squirrely as I've been in a long time, you know, and now I feel like I'm coming back to a place to where I'm, you know, able to breathe a little bit more, and I feel like I kind of, you know, have a newfound perspective or whatever. But for a second there, man, it just kind of dialed in my number for about 6 months. I mean, with all the political movement that was going on, and I think the breaking point with me was the Capitol thing, like that, you know, when all of that happened, I was like, I have to cut off, man. Like, I'm not in control. This thing is bigger than me. You know, politically it's bigger than me. You know, health-wise it's bigger than me. I'm doing everything I can, but I need to stop watching the news. I need to get off of Facebook and Instagram, and I need to just like be right here, right now for a pretty good while, you know. And I just cut off, and luckily I had the whereabouts within myself to know to do that, you know. But you know, that's one of the things that's so awesome about what you guys do, though, is that like this podcast, you know, and what you guys do for people is like, you know, allowing them to have this sacred space and giving them, you know, these fundamentals to learn more about themselves. Because in the long run, if there's anything I've learned, it's like, it's you, man. Like, your parents can be there for you. You guys can be there for me. We're all in this together kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you make the calls. You know what I mean? You decide whether you wake up, whether you keep living, whether you take care of yourself, you know, and no matter like whatever you're faced against, it is just you. And I mean, that was like probably one of the biggest pills for me to swallow as somebody who really fears being alone, as somebody who's like always been, you know, dependent upon my parents, you know, as far as they're my net, dude. They're my go-to. They're my whole thing. And my biggest fear my whole life is like whatever it was going to be like without them here, you know. And then at some point, you know, I started looking in the mirror more, and I was just like, dude, it's just me, man. Like, I got kids, I got my wife, I've got friends, I've got everything. But at the end of the day, you know, all of that comes down to like my headspace and me and just me and just me. And the more I started looking in the mirror, I was like, wow, that is really scary, dude. You know, and all of these things, like connections with you guys. I know if I ever hit in a weird spot, I could call you and you'd be there, you know, and just the opposite. But at the end of the day, whatever you tell me, I have to decide that this is something that I want to do, you know, and that I'm going to take these moves to do that. And there's something that's so invigorating when you're around people who accept that challenge and do it. Like my buddy Garrett, man, you know, dude, I could literally start crying right now just thinking about how he looked himself in the mirror and was like, I don't want to be like this anymore. I'm going to do everything that it takes to get there. And over the last like 3 years, he's just like literally pulled himself up and is like a damn tiger, like a bulletproof tiger, dude. Yeah, man. You know, and it's just, you know, and when I'm around him and everything, I'm just like, dude, that's the shit, man. You know, because at the end of the day, it is just you. Yeah. There's nobody else who can do it with you.
What you described about that nucleus, I think I start to think about self and other as this interwoven tapestry again. But it's like every I mean, Coy, I'm blown away by what you just said over the last couple minutes, because it made me take this ride in thinking about mental health, taking care of yourself, community, and you're spot on. It's like thinking about your buddy Garrett. Here was an individual that nobody could have done it for him. But in his journey to do it, he reached out and built community that was there, that was impactful, that was influential, that did help him. But we can't do it for another. And Ram Dass always says, I work on myself to help others, and I help others to work on myself. But he never says I work on others, because you can't fucking do somebody else's work. But that whole journey, man, it's like I could have stayed in private practice, and I loved what I did, man. But that's one-on-one, and the social community piece is gigantic. And if
sure.
we're going to heal, we got to heal together. And every time you go in and do your own work, it's inherently, as long as you're showing it to others, you're helping others.
Sure.
So it's like that, but you're right, man. It's like a lot of times I think we want other people to do our work, or we think we don't reach out because you're like, you're not going to be able to do that for me.
No one's
You're
coming.
not going to be able to help me. But it's like, that's not how it works. You reach out, you express yourself, and then others are there to support you as you start to do that work. And that motivation and that collaboration and community, it can just build momentum where now you're not just doing it for yourself. You are, but it's impacting everybody around you, and you can see that.
Yeah, it's like the perfect example is that he
Are we good on?
I got at 10:30. I'm late for, but you should wrap up pretty soon.
okay.
Well, and I always think, dude, we pulled a Rogan. Hardcore. This is like a four hour. We're used to doing 30-minute, and then I panicked at one point because I was like, oh God, did the sound or the audio or the cameras?
No, we're good.
Okay, awesome, good.
No, I'll check that. I'll check that for sure.
Okay. Coy, we got to tell you, it hasn't been recording for the it only recorded the
Can
first
we do
5
a
minutes.
Yeah, we should definitely. I mean, there's a lot more to even this.
Yeah.
So this is. We'll just say this is round one.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Let's
Dude.
keep them going, man.
Well, let me.
How long you think we've been talking?
An hour.
Hour and 20.
Okay.
About an hour and 20. It's good.
Okay.
We can even split this up into multiple things, though.
I'm not scared. Y'all can keep going.
man.
Yeah. Well,
I got an 11. It's like when Coy starts playing guitar. It's the same thing, dude.
Yeah.
We
I
wake
knew
up
y'all too. I was like,
it's
this
gonna
is
be 9
this
o'clock
is going to
at
be a
night.
good one. Y'all going to go back and forth. I'm just going to sit here.
But the thing is like coming back to Garrett and just to kind of put a bow on this thing, man, is that it started with me and a couple of friends realizing that he was far out and we needed to help him now. So we went and got him, and we took him to a sacred space, which led to another sacred space, and he did the work on his own. Now that he's gotten to a place, huge part of his life is dedicating his life to helping others.
Man.
So he's part of the system now.
That's what happens.
He's
man,
part
right?
of like giving back to making sure. And his whole thing is like, I can't do this for you, but I can be somebody who you reach out to for whatever, for you to get advice on how to do it for yourself.
Yep.
So that's one of the things that's been, kind of the most interesting part of the journey is like doing that for myself, seeing it done within other people, and just knowing when it all comes down to it, man, it's really, like it's all your work, and you can be a part of community, and that helps a ton, and that fulfills the circle and everything. But, I'm definitely in this phase now, particularly with like being at my age and with where my kids are and starting to do the math on how long my parents are going to be alive, how long am I going to be able to tour anymore? Can you tour until you're 95? I mean, the Rolling Stones can, but
Yes.
it's
They
like,
seem kind of rare.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, I start doing the math and I'm like, okay, dude, I want to have a plan from here forward, specifically with health. And so like the pandemic has taught me that some of my coping mechanisms aren't long-term coping mechanisms. Like they're going to have to change. Like I'm going to have to replace like, necessarily coping with food or something like that with coping with exercise. Like it has to happen. And in my life, I'm already looking in the mirror going, that's your next hurdle, dude. That's your thing, is that you're going to have to switch gears on the way you do that and replace one with the other, because the other one has sustainability and the other one doesn't.
But that takes constant self-examination and reflection.
I love
and
that,
the
though.
ability. Well, the ability to go, I'm not going to run from the mirror. I'm going to look on multiple levels and do this kind of analysis of like, okay, man, where is my mental health? Where is my physical health? Where is my emotional health? What am I doing or not doing to work on the growth of these things, man? And I think, Coy, I just like, this is awesome.
Yeah,
this
dude.
Is,
this has been killer, dude.
It's surreal and it's awesome. And this is a blessing. And we are grateful for you coming on and talking about everything. And I think, we should keep it going, man.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we could do round 2, round 3. We could do like a 7-part series
Yeah, dude.
for you.
At one point, Coy's going to be
We have Coy
"Listen,
Bowles
guys,
back again."
I've done 47 podcasts.
Like, did you have somebody else on the fucking show?
I mean, I feel like it's if we were doing like a Rogan thing, you know, he has
shit.
people who keep coming back on, you know, and they
Yeah.
and they
Dude, we'd
always
love to have
seem-
you back.
If we're doing
Yeah.
a Rogan thing, I'd just like to be Joey Diaz. I think
Yeah,
he's the
exactly.
funniest.
You fit the mold, buddy.
You
No.
can be Eddie Bravo, dude. Talking about he's the jujitsu guy that's talking about like chemtrails all the time.
Can I be Rogan? Or Jamie? Rogan
Dude,
or Jamie?
Okay, so Rogan just did this Spotify thing where he was like, you know, basically saying, you know, hey,
I know,
this whole Neil
Neil
Young
Young.
thing and all that stuff. And dude, my lips are so dry right now. It's unbelievable. I have
same.
I forgot to grab water so I could like wet my whistle here. So I'm over here like spitting sweaters.
I
dude.
wonder why I kept looking at my coffee. Like, I
Yeah.
want to sip of that thing.
And out of all of that thing that he posted, all I wanted to say was like, you have to go back and watch this video. It's like his lips got progressively drier as he talked. Like it's like a 4-minute video, and at the end of the video, it looks like he's been like in the desert for like 10 days.
I gotta
the
watch
first
this
video,
shit.
first part of the video, it's like pretty fresh lips.
Yeah.
And it's
And
like
then it
something happened to his body as he was like
That's like
describing
that
saying,
soccer player. Have you seen the one video of him sweating and they time lapse it? He's wearing a light blue collared shirt, and by the end of it, it's dark. In the sweat, it's the best, dude.
Who's this?
It's this soccer player, dude, and he's just talking during
after the game?
It starts to splotch, and by the end of it, it is saturated.
That's
that's
you,
so
man.
funny.
You really
I was
connected
like,
that guy.
I already had it typed out. I was like, forget the Neil Young stuff. Like,
What's wrong with
Does anybody
homeboy's
notice like
lips?
his lips went from moist to dry?
I
in
gotta
4
watch
minutes?
that video.
You know, but I was like, these guys are so hardcore, man. I'll just get trashed on this thing. It'll either be really funny or like next thing I know, I have like death threats. So I was like, I'm probably just gonna leave this one alone. you know?
This is actually a side effect of alpha brain. If you take it,
How much do you lift, bro?
yeah. Coy, thank
But
you.
yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
dude.
coming on, man. Thanks, guys, for listening. We'll have you back for sure.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, this is Wes. Thank you so much for tuning in to Eternal Strength Pirate Radio. Head on over to eternalstrengthatl.com, and don't forget to check out cosmiclamb.org, our 501c3 nonprofit, where you can make a donation and help us fulfill the mission of bringing radical youth work to any and all families in need.